Welcome to the Hot Rod Hangout Podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Ashley.
And tonight we got a special guest, Mario from, I just forgot how to say your name again. Calleja Kustoms. What's going on, man?
Oh, nothing much, man. How you doing?
No matter how many times I beat that in my head, I still...
Oh, you'll get it. You'll get it.
Yeah. I just got to say it like 14 more times and we'll be good.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. Sometimes I even forget my own name sometimes.
Well, it's hard to spell our last name, so, you know, B-O-Y-S. Yeah. It's hard. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's been going on, man?
Nothing much, man. Just keeping busy in the shop and trying to get some stuff done. It seems like sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, but you kind of just put your head down and just shut your eyes sometimes and keep going.
I'm in that mode right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
So trying to get electric in the shop so we can get the welder working so we can start making steps back on the Model A. And yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So what originally got you into this crazy car obsession?
I don't know. It's ever since I was a kid. I mean, watching my dad, he's the biggest influence over the years. You know, him and his brother, they used to be street racers back in the 60s, and they lived at the tracks. And so it was always, around it, whether it be, my dad or my uncle or my cousin or whatever. We'd always had cars in our genes, So I mean, through high school, it was always kind of a on hand kind of guy. I never really, I got through academically, but it was always kind of liked working with my hands,
Mm-hmm.
And so I was always wanting to go for an auto mechanic, after high school. And it kind of morphed into, and we always had horses around too. So it kind of morphed into me being a blacksmith. So I kind of jumped in, with regards to becoming a blacksmith and a farrier,
Mm-hmm.
and then shoeing horses forever. But the cars were always there, like it was, my dad had growing up too, like we had a Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am and a 77 Trans Am. And I remember, going to kindergarten, my mom driving us in the Trans Am to go to kindergarten, and then it kind of, they sold that car and then they bought an old van and then they bought a Corvette. And I was like in high school, I'm like, I can't wait to get my license because, I can take Dad's Corvette, And he goes to me, he says, when you get your license, we'll talk about it, And so getting my license comes around and I'm like, all right, I'm going to take the car and go on a couple dates and be the coolest guy in town, right? And so he says, all right, here's a chance. Let's go. So I get in the car and I had a big smile on my face and we go around the block and park the car back in the garage. And he says, so how was it? I'm like, I'm looking forward to this, And he goes, actually the guy's coming this afternoon. He's picked up the car. So I sold it.
Oh, man.
And I went, you did what? And he goes, yeah. He says, I sold it.
Oh my
I'm like, and I'm thinking, oh, you're joking, right? Like you're joking. And he's like, no, the car's gone. He's picking it up. And I'm like, oh my God. So I had all these plans, right? And they were all like kind of ruined.
Oh.
And so he says to me, he goes, you know what? He says, I am not going to give you the keys to that car and have you kill yourself because you're 17 years old and you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So I said, okay. And he goes, why don't we build one? And I went, build what? And he goes, let's build a hot rod. And he says, let's go to swap meets. Let's grab some parts. We'll go buy a frame, and we'll build a car, and we'll take our time. So as soon as you get some responsibility underneath your belt, and you paying for the parts, then you have your car. And I'm like, well, okay, all right, that sounds all right. So he helped me out a little bit. We went to a swap meet and found a Model A frame, and we bought it for $150. And so we I couldn't afford we didn't have a trailer at the time or anything like that, and we wouldn't fit in the back of the pickup because we had a short bed, And so I asked the guy, like, would you be able to deliver it, And he goes, yeah, I could probably do that for an extra $25. I could probably deliver it for you. And I'm like, cool. So anyways, they delivered it for me. And throughout the years, we, went to swap meets and grabbed parts and found a body and all the stuff. So I built that car with my dad right through high school.
Awesome.
And, yeah, that was, I don't want to give too much of my age away, but that was in 1990.
Okay.
And I still got the car.
Oh my goodness.
That's even cooler.
Yeah. So it's you've probably seen it on Instagram or what have you, but it's that yellow Model A coupe, 5-window coupe, and I've been driving that car for years.
Very beautiful car.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, so it's I've gotten offered, to sell it, and people see it around a car show and they're like, would you put a number of value on that? And I'm like, honestly, man, I don't think so. Nope. It's one of those things that I can't see myself ever getting rid of that car. I've had it for that long. It'll just stay here. So,
yep.
So that's kind of how it got kicked into what it is now. It's just throughout the years, you build that one and you learn, right? And you kind of learn through experience. And then, for me anyway, it's the fun of it is, it's driving it, but the fun of it is kind of building it. And then once that's done and you drive it, okay, it's fantastic because it's a great feeling. But it's fun of it for me is building it.
Yeah, more fit into the next progression.
Yeah, and it's almost like I don't really like taking on a project that has already been kind of built. I'd like to just start from the ground up. So this way, I build it the way I want to build it. And I know it's done right, and I know it's done true, and it evolves your skill too, because I always got away with in Canada here we have a Canadian Tire, and so you buy cheap tools and you kind of work your way up to buying better tools or buying better equipment, and you're not as good as your equipment, so. It's one of those things where you can get away with hand tools at a certain point, but you kind of have to buy some decent equipment to do a decent job,
Yeah.
Well, so you mentioned Canada. Where in Canada are you at?
So we're in a little town called Mansfield, Ontario.
Okay.
So we're in Ontario, Canada, and we're probably about a half an hour to an hour away from like downtown Toronto.
Okay. My dad's from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. The other side.
Cool. Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's funny because I've never been out west or never been out east or anywhere. I mean, the furthest I've gone east would be like Montreal.
The way he explains it is Canada is just the U.S. like on its side. So like rednecks and country folk are over on the west side, and then you have like our northerners on your side.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. So, oh yeah. We have quite a few bunch of rednecks where we are.
So you've mentioned that you kept
rednecks are hardworking guys.
Hey, so you mentioned that you've kept the Model A for all these years. What's a car that got away? Whether you had an opportunity to buy something and you just couldn't put it together, or you built it, got rid of it, and kicked yourself.
There's been a couple, man. Like really, really heartbreaking. One was it was a Model A 2-door sedan, and it was all steel. It was at a swap meet in Barrie, Ontario. They hold it's kind of gotten worse over the years, but it was a lot better before, and a lot better parts, mind you. And it was sitting there. It was already chopped. It had a 4.5-inch chop on it. The doors were all done. It was all together. There was no frame or nothing, but it was all in bare metal. You could actually see the welds and everything, and it was done pretty good, you know. And so I look on what he had stuck on the cowl of it, and it said $400 or best offer. And I went, $400 or best offer? Like, something's wrong here, right? Maybe you forgot a zero or something. So I call him over and I'm like, hey man, I'm like, you know, it says $400, but you know, like, is that right? Or he says, oh yeah. He says, oh yeah, he goes, I got no more time for it. I just need it gone. And I'm like, wow, okay. I said, no problem. I'll give you the $400. I didn't want to even haggle with the guy, but I'll give you $400. And would you mind, like, me just thinking on it for a second? I'll cruise around a bunch of miles. And it was a huge swap meet. Like, I don't know how many, like, at least 30 or 40 acre field of just parts, you know. And so he's like, all right, well, I'm here, you know. And so coming back, I forgot the number of the aisle and all this stuff, and I'm with my old man, right? And I'm like, you know, we gotta find this aisle because I need to pay this guy, you know. So, anyways, we ask around, and he's like, yeah, you know, go down this aisle. It should be down here. You know, that's where all the guys with the bigger stuff, bigger booths are, right? I said, okay, cool. So we get down there, and I'm looking for the car. I can't see it. Like, I cannot see it. We ended up walking the whole thing again because I couldn't find this car. So anyway, so finally I recognize the guy. You know, I'm coming to the booth. I recognize the guy. I'm like, hey man, like, he goes, sorry dude, the guy offered me $500 and I gave it to him. Oh. And I'm like, oh my God. And from that point on, I was like, if you see it and it's a good deal, just get it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, don't wait. Don't like go and get a hot dog or something. Just freaking just go and get it, you know? Yep. And that was one that was like, shit. It was like, you can't find a body like that for under, like, $400 is not in the context, you know? It's just like offenders are $400, you know?
I know. I just bought them on. I had a similar thing. We had went up to Moultrie, Georgia, which is their fall swap meet is huge, and we went up for spring. And I'm sitting at the booth that we were in, and I'm looking, and I'm like, I was looking for a Model A, and I wanted a sedan because I wanted it to be different. Because there's a lot of Model A coupes down here, so I was like, I want to be weird. So sitting across it's on a trailer, and it's like 8:30 in the morning, and I had walked over, and like you said, you like look at the price, and you're like, there's no way that's the price. But I never seen anybody around.
Right.
So I was like, okay, so I'm like, I walk swap meet, and I'm kind of like still keeping an eye on, does this car move? So I'm all the way on the other side of the field, and the car's rolling off the trailer, and I'm like, oh, he must just be like pushing it off the trailer. So I like beeline back over there. No, it's running.
Oh, come on.
And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, hey, I'm looking, and I'm like, hey, like, what are you trying to get out of it? He goes, oh, I just sold it. And I'm like,
no.
I'm like, what did the guy pay for it? He's like, oh, $3,500.
Oh no.
And it was flat black. Like, it was already like, I'm like,
oh my God. Yeah.
And he's like, why were you interested in it? And I was like, dude, I walked around this thing like 14 times before you got here this morning. He goes, yeah, the first guy, as soon as I walked up, he paid me for it. He's coming around with a trailer. And I was like, oh, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just, you got to be in the right place at that second, you know.
Oh, yeah. And I wasn't really looking for a complete car. I was really just looking for a body because I knew I wasn't going to use much of the car. I was just really using the body itself. Yeah, I'm not even using hood or side panels or none of that. So it was like, all I really needed was a body. But, and I ended up buying a whole car, and I tried to get the 4-banger running for about 3 hours, and I was like, man, this is cranking over real slow. I put a brand new battery in it, brand new coil. I still couldn't make it run, and I'm like, well, it looked real good with a V8 in it. Let's rip this body off. So,
yeah, well, you know what? Sometimes it comes back, man. You know.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I missed the opportunity for that body, but then, you know, it could be like months after, or even years after, you know. But I don't know. Sometimes it comes back, you know, because this was in the summer of this summer. I'm driving by because I'm a pinstriper too, so I do a lot of pinstriping. So I'm going to do this job on this transport truck, actually, lettering it and striping it, and it's about maybe an hour, almost 2 hours away from me. So I'm driving down the road and getting to his concession, and I just drove by, and I just turned my head quick, like something just caught my eye quick, you know, in the field. And so I stop in the middle of the road. Thank God nobody was behind me, you know. But I put my truck in reverse and back right up. And sure enough, there's a 2-door Model A, 2-door sedan sitting in the field. And so I'm looking around. And again, like you said, no one's around. There's nobody there. There's like a little gravel laneway, and that's it. So I'm even trying to look for a house. Can't find a house. So I'm like, well, I said, you know, like, I got to get to this job. I can't, you know, waste too much time out here. So anyways, I said to myself, I'll go do this job. And then when I come back, I'll take the same route and I'll see if someone's out afterwards, you know. So I go do the job and I'm driving back. And sure enough, on the laneway, there's these 2 young kids, right? So I pull off to the side of the road and I just asked them, I'm like, hi, I'm just wondering, you know, like, I'm just driving by, seen this old car in the field, and just wondering, is your mom or dad around at all? And they say to me, and the look on their faces is like, wow, this like tall bearded guy's really scaring me. I'm gonna run inside. So they go, and like the one little kid runs down, just books it. Just runs down the laneway, and I'm like, okay, no, it's okay, it's all right, I'm not gonna, you know. And the one girl standing there, she's just looking at me and she's shaking, and I'm like, it's okay, don't get scared. I just want to know if anyone's around that can, you know, see if they want to sell this car. And no one's around, and I'm like, okay. So anyway, so she ends up booking it down the driveway, and I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like, you know what? Let me just leave a note. I'm just going to leave a note. So I get in the truck and I write this note and I tape it to the cowl, right? And I just said, I'm like, if you're interested in selling this car, here's my phone number, you know. So a week goes by and I'm like, yeah, they don't want to sell it. They rather just let it rot in the field, right? And so on that weekend, it was like my phone rings and I'm like, okay. So I answer it, and it's like, yeah, he says, I got your note on my car, and yeah, and realistically, it's my dad's property. He died, and he's like a hoarder of like mechanical stuff. He was a mechanic, and he had this car, and I'm like, okay. So he goes, well, we're just cleaning the property up, you know, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, are you willing to sell the car? And he says, well, a neighbor wants it, but he hasn't contacted me yet, and he said he wants it, but he doesn't. I said, hey, man, if you want it, I'll go grab my trailer now, and I'll come and get it. I said, but you got to let me know what you want for it, right? And he says, I don't even know, man. He goes, he says, $150 sound good to you?
Sounds real good. I'm on my way.
And I'm like, yeah, I'll be there right now.
Yeah.
So, I literally hooked up my trailer and drove back down there, winched it up, and it's sitting upstairs in the barn. So
awesome.
There you go. So I think
it's pretty rough,
Yeah, well,
sitting in a field all these years, but.
And y'all have a little bit of that white snuff that makes everything rust way better than it does.
Yeah. The winters here have been they've been pretty good lately. I mean, their last winter we got hardly any snow. I mean, there was a couple of good dustings, but nothing too bad. I mean, the Farmer's Almanac says that we're going to get hit hard this year, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But and it's harder to find them and dig them out when there's like 3 feet of snow on top of them. But
well, for 35 years we've never had snow, so we're good.
Well, that's good. That's good. I can't stand the snow, so
that's why my dad moved here.
Yeah, there you go.
Hurricanes that rip.
Yeah, we get hurricanes that destroy.
Yeah, I guess that would be the downfall to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But we're inland, so it doesn't usually affect us. But this last one flooded a little bit. Not us, but around us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
I feel bad for the people that really got hit bad. It's just it's devastating. I couldn't even imagine. Like my wife and I were talking as it was happening, really, and I'm like, oh my God, like I couldn't even imagine having to lose everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And there's nothing you can do about it. There's just nothing you can do about it,
It's very weird because usually a hurricane, if it hits the way it did, usually doesn't make it up into South Carolina, North Carolina. Right. And that was where most of the damage was up there.
Yeah.
Like whole houses just slid off the mountain. It's like how I don't know if you follow Cletus McFarland, but he flew a helicopter up there. And he was talking about they took supplies and was dropping people and trying to get people out and just trying to help.
Yeah.
And he was saying that there was a house, you could see the pad up on the mountain, and then the house was perfectly fine at the bottom of the mountain, and it just slid down.
Holy jeez.
And he's like, I'm hoping nobody was there, but were they in the house and just rode it down the mountain?
Yeah.
Like this.
A ride of their life.
Yeah, but it was crazy. And then the second one that hit us, like I said, it flooded. We got some flooding around us, but we were good.
Yeah. We got some. This summer over here has been pretty wet.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you have a thunderstorm here, it's a thunderstorm, but not like this year. I mean, our shop got flooded at least 2 or 3 times.
Jeez.
And it's like, oh my God, as you're working all day, and and then at night it just downpours, and you wake up to 2 inches of water in the whole floor, and I'm like, oh my God. So now you gotta drain all that out, clean everything, and then that there goes your day.
Yeah.
So
I'm pretty sure it's gonna be the Model A. But what's the favorite car you own?
Oh, that's hard, man. The favorite one now, I mean, I'm having fun doing it, is that 26 Model T. It's it's one of those cars where it's and I've had the car for about 17 years. And it was always put in a corner of a garage, life happens, right?
Yeah.
And you kind of, it was morphed into, my dad and I chopping it and building a frame for it a long time ago and channeling it and all that stuff. And then it just progress stopped, and then it moved to oh my God, I was having it in storage. And then I only had a 1-car little garage, and it was just enough for the Model A, and that was it. I'm like, oh oh, this is terrible. So I had to move it to, my parents' place, and then I had to move it to a neighbor's place. And I'm like, and then finally when we got our, our stuff together, it was like, okay, now we can finally bring it home and keep it in our shop. And then it got pushed into a corner, and I'm like, okay, this is it. This is enough. I'm not doing this anymore, And so then we started about maybe, I would say 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. I started going full tilt on it, and I said, like, I got to get this done. I got to get it done. And the vision for that car was always an early 60s, show rod that, would have ended up in like the original basement at Detroit Auto Ramp, and kind of a influence with regards to like a not Barris, but like a, how do I say this? Like an Alexander Brothers build, or an Ed Roth kind of deal, And I wanted to stick traditional. I wanted to stick true to, rare vintage parts, as much as I could. And then, stick to my vision more or less, and kind of, very often a little bit, but kind of stay in the straight and narrows on how I wanted it to turn out, So that right now is my favorite right now. I mean, I would say the Model A still, because having that car on the road for so long, it's never broken down on me. Literally, I've changed the oil in it. I changed plugs, and I mean, I think I changed the brake pads, and that was it. And the thing's most reliable as hell. I just turn the key and drive it, So that, but right now, what's getting me excited is this Model T, And then my wife's car, that thing is like bomb-proof,
That's her car.
Oh my God. What's that?
That's her 54.
Yeah. I like it because of long distance stuff, like, I mean, in a chop 5 window, if I'm in it for like an hour, I want out.
Yeah.
Like it's not a very, and I got bias plies on it too. So it's not a very comfortable car, But the 56 Ford, my God, that thing's great. We've gone everywhere with that thing. And there was actually a funny story with that thing too. So this is going back quite a while now. We had it, I can't even remember how much, at least 13 years ago. 12 or 13 years we've had that car. And so a friend of mine, we were at a car show one day, and he came around and he's like, "Hey man," he goes, "Do you want to like check out this car? It's my dad's car." And he goes, he's dying, and he goes, it's sitting on his driveway and it's just rotting away. And I'm like, I really don't need another car, man. Like, I just don't have the time in the room, And he goes, "I know, but it was his first car that he ever bought when he came over from Greece, and he bought it brand spanking new in 1956, I'm like, all right. I'm like, well, what is it? Like, what kind of car is it? He didn't even tell me what kind of car it was. And then he goes, well, it's a 56 Ford custom line, 4-door custom line. And I'm like, all right, cool. That's all right. I'm like, I don't care if it's 4 doors or 2 doors or nothing. You got 2 extra doors, And so he says, well, you got to come and look at it. He goes, I have no clue about it, man. He goes, my brother wants it, but I know for a fact he's not going to do anything with it, And he says, it doesn't need work. Like it's rotting away. I'm like, okay, well, I got to come and take a look at it. So I come home that day, and so jokingly, I said to well, not really jokingly, but I said to my wife, I'm like, hey, do you want a car? And she goes, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I told her the whole story, and she says, well, what kind of car is it? I'm like, it's a 56 Ford. She goes, yes. She goes, absolutely. We got to go see it. And I'm like, all right. So we take my truck, take my car trailer, head to his place. And so sure enough, we get up to his parents' place, and it's sitting on the driveway, right? And he was not joking. It was rotted. Like, I mean, beyond rotted. If it was a customer's car, I would have said, forget it. Like, there's no point because there's too much work. Yeah. Like, just forget it. So, so I said to her, I was like, well, you want to tackle this? Like, and she goes, I've never built a car before, Meryl. So, let's just do it together and I can learn and you can teach me and I'll have a cool car at the end of it. Right. I'm like, hope so. So anyway, so we bring it home and, again, the guy had no clue. He was like, I don't even know how much this thing's worth. And I said, well, I don't know. I said, it's rotted, dude. Like, all 4 doors, you could see the seats from outside the car. Like, it was just, there was no doors. There was no door pillar left. The roof, we literally lifted it off the car to move it. It was rotted right around the drip rail. The quarter panels were gone. The floors were gone. The trunk was gone. The hood was gone. Like, it was gone. But the only thing that was pretty good was the frame. So I'm like, all right, well, can always search for new door, like better doors or a better hood, And so I said, all right, well, I said, honestly, dude, I'll give you I don't want to insult you. I don't want to insult your family at all. Like, I know what you guys are going through. And what do you want to get at it? He goes, well, honestly, Miro, it's going to go to scrap if you don't take it. Right. And I said, well, I don't know, man. Shoot me a number. He goes, if you give me $200, just take it. Right. And I'm like, $200? I'm like, no, I'll give you $300. Like, I'm not going to. And at that, $300 was like, holy Jesus, this is a great deal.
Yeah.
But it really wasn't because there was a lot of work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So anyway, whatever, we paid him and we brought it home and I kind of put it off because I got no time for it right now. But Kendra was like, let's do this. I got to get under this car and start cleaning it up. So she got underneath there with an air scaler and she started taking all that undercoat and stuff off. And she did a lot of the dirty work, so it was always going to be almost just a beater, it just paint it flat black, put a small block in it and just drive it, So then she says to me, she goes, well, can you make some bubble skirts for it? Right. And I'm like, yeah, I could probably do that, So anyways, I make some bubble skirts for it. And then she goes, well, can you peek the hood too? Right. Yeah, okay. All right. We peek the hood and she goes, yeah. And I seen on this one magazine, those sunken aerials. I'm like, oh, you want me to French the air? She goes, yeah. Can you do 2 of them? Sure. Yeah. So we do.
So a custom was born.
Yeah. So then the big kicker was she goes, because my wife's she's a horror fanatic, right? She loves horror. She loves horror stuff. We both are. Anyway, so she goes, well, I want to do it like a horror theme. So I want to do I want to get it black and sparkly. And let's put some gold scallops on it. And let's do a leopard print interior. And let's call it the Crypt Kicker. All right. We can do that. So anyway, so we start doing all this stuff. And, a beater turned into a nice little custom.
Yeah. So.
And, it's an awesome car.
Yeah. Well, that was the 54. Me and Ashley bought it kind of as her introduction to hot rods.
Cool.
I had gotten out of cars and got into the bikes and
right on. Yeah.
then when we got together, she was, not really in a garage. She wasn't allowed to be in the garage. And I was like, well, your hands are smaller and you fit more places than I do. So you're hired. Let's go.
It's handy.
So we went and picked up Michelangelo, which is her 54
that's
now.
That's awesome.
And
that's
awesome. She had to learn how to drive a 5-speed, loading it on the trailer because I couldn't climb out the door.
Out the window.
Or out the window, rather. So we get it home, and I'm like all excited. We unload it, and I'm like all excited. Put her in the car. It sits on the ground. It's dragging. I'm like, oh, okay. It's got a little exhaust leak, so we button up the exhaust, and they ran the exhaust under all the cross members, so it's low and it sits on the ground. Like it was. So we went through the front end, did suspension stuff like that, lifted it up a little bit to where it was drivable, and it was kind of. We'll get to it. I'm gonna build a Model A. Once I get my Model A done, then we'll tackle your car. Well, then it was about 3 weeks ago.
I don't remember.
I had a buddy that was like, hey, man, we're going to this Jacksonville show, which is 3.5 hours from us. And I was like, all right, well, y'all have fun. Like, that car don't go 3.5 hours anywhere.
Right.
And he's like, what are you scared of? And I'm like, well, I mean, it's made it home every time so far. And he's like, well, so what are you scared of? And I was like, I just never done it. And he's like, all right, cool. So Ashley gets off at 4. I said, yep. He goes, all right, we'll be at your house. You're going with us. And I was like,
that's
10-4. So we rode up there. Awesome. The dude at the hotel is like, y'all drove that here? And I'm like, yep, we're going to drive it home too. Because it's rusty. It's an original paint car. I mean, the roof's been repainted, but it's nothing.
Yeah.
And it still has 100% success rate of getting home. Yep. It did show its ass. It did show its ass coming home from the drag strip riot on Saturday.
Yeah.
I think the carburetor's done.
Yeah.
But
that's all right though. Hey, it's like, it's funny because I used to be before I met my girlfriend, was my wife now, I was always the type, or my dad, I guess I got it from my dad because my dad's a little lano, right? So it would be like, oh, you can't drive that car in the rain. You can't do that. And I'm like, okay. So it was like, and in realistic form, like it's a little scary in the rain with the bias plies on it, on a 300 and 400 horsepower motor. It's a little sketchy in the rain, but whatever. So before it was like, all right, it's gonna rain. I can't go to that car show, or it was like, oh, well, it's like it's a 2.5 hour drive. Like, I don't know if it'll make it there and back, I'm not gonna go that far, and then. As soon as I met my wife, she was like, why don't you drive your car? Like, and I'm like, well, I explained it. And she goes, Mario, it's a car. Just get in it and drive it. What's the worst can happen? You're gonna call CAA or, to tow it home? Like, what's the worst can happen? And I'm like, yeah, you're kind of right. You're kind of right. Like, if you're scared all the time that they can't drive, and we're, in this hobby or, business or hobby or lifestyle or whatever, we kind of, sometimes people forget on how these cars were on the road all the time. They were driven across the states, across Canada. People would push their families and strap their kids into their seats and just drive for 2 or 3 days.
Yep.
And, I mean, it's a car. It's got to be driven. And I've learned that over the years. Like, whatever, man, it's a hot rod. Just drive it, Yeah, that's what they're built for.
The only thing that I really didn't get from my dad's more shiny. He likes shiny paint. Yeah. And I'm more like, it'll be all right.
Yeah.
He's got a little 34 pickup truck, and it's the same way your Model A is. About an hour, he's like, I'm ready to get out. Like,
Yeah. Especially the chopped and channel stuff. Like it's cool, Yeah. It's but it's like, don't expect to be comfortable. And I kind of relay that to, customers that come in too, And it's like, yeah, I want you to take like 5 inches out of the roof. I'm like, no, man, no, like I won't do that, because it's like, you're not going to be able to see a traffic light. You're not going to be able to see a stop sign, and then it's like, if something happens, I don't want to be the one to say, well, we should have went another inch, but, and more so sometimes too, is like, it's hard to explain to them too, especially when they don't know a lot about hot rods, or, they like the way it looks. They like it chopped. They like it channeled. They like it low, and, it's their first hot rod, right? So they don't know the whole, comfort part of it, and they say, well, like, because, Kendra does all the interiors for us and stuff. And, so after I do all my stuff, and, if she wants to take it on, then she takes it on. But then, then they say, well, I want it really comfortable. And I'm like, yeah, you're not going to get a 33 or 34 Ford pickup that's chopped 4.5 inches and channeled 6 to be comfortable.
No.
It ain't going to happen.
Well, even with no chop and 4.5, 5 inches of channel, it's still.
Oh yeah. Your knees are in your ears,
Yep.
So, but it's all what everybody wants. I totally get it, but I try to sit them down and talk to them, and like, is this what you really want to do? Because, if you're looking for comfort out of this whole deal, it's you're better off like maybe reducing the chop, or not going so hard, or not,
or
not
pushing it into
so
the
low.
40s and 50s.
Yeah, exactly.
Where people started getting taller and you had more leg room to work with.
Right. That's right.
I mean, that's what the sedan, my Model A sedan is channeled, and then every time I post a picture of it, Zach Park sends me scissor emojis. He's dying to chop it, which I'm dying to let him chop it, but I said, once I get it all done, then I'll take a measurement, make sure I got room. But I sit in the back seat of it, so I'm not going to see red lights anyway, so.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. You just kind of, you do the hot rod duck,
Well,
you
somebody jokingly said on one of our lives, like way back, somebody said something about a backup camera, and I'm like, I'm thinking about mounting a camera in the cow, just looking up with a screen.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Because those little, I assume they're up there too. The little spot mirrors, the prism lights are.
Oh yeah, little ribbed kind of.
Yeah, where you can see sort of up. I'm like, I'm too blind to see the dashboard. I wouldn't be able to see it from. Like, is that green? Is that red? Like, so. But they may. I mean, now they're hiding cameras everywhere. So we seen one. We went to the drag strip riot, and there was a little tiny backup camera on was a 36.
Oh, right on. Yeah.
And it was just in the corner of the back window. Because I was like, how are you? You ain't seeing it, because it's a mail slot back window, so you can't see nothing out of it anyway. Yeah. And I'm like, how is he?
I mean, it looks cool.
Oh yeah.
Know, like, when I do our chops, or whatever, and a lot of guys will say to me, well, I kind of want, like, I want you to chop it, but I want you to keep the window like a stock. I'm like, no, don't do that. No. Don't do that, because it doesn't look right,
You can chop it a little less, but you still got to. Yeah,
you need that, like, little slot, Yeah. That's the whole point.
But I mean, and the visual, I mean, it looks good, and at some point, it's like comfort looks good. You kind of gotta.
You can't have both.
Not in a 20s or 30s car.
No, God, no. No, I mean, I there's another project that I got to get on to, and it's I got a 33, 34 Ford pickup, and I wanted it to, like, I have this kind of vision on doing it like an old, an old hot rod that was done like in the old rod and custom books, the little books, So I wanted it to do like a chopped and channeled truck, but full fender, and because I think they look cool, chopped and channeled, but full fender, and because I mean, it's pretty easy to, I wouldn't say easy, but it's easier to deal with a hot rod that has no fenders, because you don't have to worry about clearance issues and all that stuff, right? But I think there's a lot more. I think it would be nice to see more full fendered hot rods out there, instead of high boys all the time, because it's almost like it's that record you keep playing over and over and over again, right?
It's you the love checklist,
but it's playing it over and over and over again. So kind of go back to doing an old school rod with full fenders, and it would it suits certain cars,
Yeah.
Like I don't think like the 26 that we're doing, it's just kind of a vision for me to keep it no fender, right?
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't want to go white walls. I wanted to keep it black wall, and kind of, again, it's almost like white walls are kind of overdone now. It kind of waves in and out of popularity.
And white walls, I like white walls on certain cars. Certain cars need white walls, and then other ones, it's like you went over the top here. It doesn't need white walls. It kind of takes away from what you're trying to do.
Yeah, exactly. It almost gets to how do I say this in the nicest of way? But it almost gets to like catalog-y, It's like oh, it's a really the car's done like over the top, and then you got these like pushing it right over the top, right? When it really doesn't need it,
Well, it's a checklist. I mean, everybody, I don't know about up there, but down here, in the States, it's like, it's got to have a 32 grill. It's got to be this. It's got to be that.
Right.
It has to have this. And, you fall into it. And I was a victim of that when I said, when I started the Model A, it was going to be my way. Mm-hmm. And then it was like, oh, well, I'll put it on a Bolin Brothers chassis and I'll do this and I'll do this. And I'm like, wait. Nope. Yeah. Back up. That car is going to lay on the ground, and it's all hidden air ride. So I ain't got no fenders because my back tires are in the window. But
right. Yeah.
But
no, that's cool.
And it was kind of like, I wanted a flathead just because of the look, but I don't know a whole lot about flatheads. And a good friend of mine told me that I was like, I really, I don't know enough about flatheads to try it. I said, so what do I need to be looking for? Yeah. And he was like, well, let me tell you this. He goes, a flathead motor is the most money you'll spend to go slow. Yeah, and I went, you're right, man. And you know what? I know small block. So small block Chevrolet with 3 deuces and a blower belt set up, because I can't afford a blower, but I can afford the belt. So
yeah, right.
So it'll look, it's going to look my way. And when it's sitting at ride height, all of the air suspension's hidden. It's a traditional cross member in the front, traditional,
cool.
But there's air rides in the cross member now. So when it's sitting at ride height, it'll all be hidden. It'll look like a traditional car. I can lay it on the ground and then people can try to figure out how it got there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, air ride have come along a long way. Like, the earlier air ride stuff was terrible.
Yes,
because it was just like it was like you're riding in a tank,
Well, it was never meant, when it first came out. It was never meant to actually be used on small cars. It was semis and
for sure.
I mean, I remember the first air ride truck I seen was cab bags off a semi.
Yeah.
When it only adjusted 2 or 3 inches, and they still had all their other suspension too. It just
for sure. Oh yeah,
and it's now. I mean, they're doing cantilever setup and crazy setups.
Oh yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
So
I mean, we don't do a lot of air ride stuff. It's mostly like a lot of static suspension. Yeah. Even with regards to Kustoms and stuff, just static suspension. You do have to watch going in and out of gas stations, because you're gonna scrape something. But it's kind of, for us, it's kind of just a traditional way of doing it, you know. And I guess the other end of it is as hydraulics. The hydraulics have been around for a long time, but if somebody's building a budget build, that stuff starts getting expensive.
There was a short time period that the Model A was going to be on hydraulics. I had a buddy I went to school with, and when he was here, it was all air ride. Everything he owned had to be on air ride. Everything was air ride. He moved out to Arizona, and they don't do any air ride. They do all hydraulic setups. So I got with him, and I'm like, hey, I want to hide air ride, and I want to hide air ride in the front. Like, obviously the rear's got the body on it. You can't see it. So he's like, why don't you do hydraulics? And I was like, because I don't want to hop a 1929 Model A. And he's like, no, dude, they make
it could be fun.
Not as rusty as that car is. It'd fall apart. I'd be driving just the chassis. But so I was like, man, he's like, no. And he was explaining to me, and I'm like, what? Like, dude, it's a rough ride. He's like, no, man, they make accumulators and all this other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but how are you going to hide a cylinder? He goes, they make them that have eyes on them. You could just put them right in your shock mounts. And I was like, what?
Wow.
Like, it just.
Wow.
So on the front end, it would have just looked like two big bore shocks.
Like shocks.
And I was like, okay. And then I was like, he got busy, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to try to tackle my first hydraulic build on a custom build that I'm doing for myself. So he's not around to help. I'll go back to what I sort of know a little bit about.
Yeah. Well, that's true, right? Like, you go back to what you're used to almost, you know? And not to say that you don't want to try anything new, but, you know, I found that with customers too. It's like, they want this, they want that. And right off the bat, sometimes I'll be like, I'm not the guy for you.
Yeah.
You know, like with regards to all the LS swaps and all that stuff, I've never done one. I'm more of a carbureted guy. But you know, if a customer wants to come in and they want an LS swap, I'll do it for them, and I'll outsource a guy that knows it really well that will come in and wire it, you know. But I'd probably be in there learning.
Yeah.
So this, like, because I mean, we like to do most of our stuff in house, you know. I don't like to really outsource a lot of stuff outside the shop. So it just makes it, you know, some guys are really good at what they do, and you can outsource that to those guys, and you're repetitive, you know, giving them the work because they're helping you out a lot. But on the other end of the scale, you kind of get into the, you know, excuse my French, but the bullshit, you know. And it's like, guys, I don't have time for that. Like, just, you know, just, if you can't do it, just don't do it. You know, just don't. I'll try to source it out myself, or try to figure it out myself, you know?
Yeah.
So most of the stuff we do is in-house, and even with regards to the interiors and stuff, you know, I always had a guy had to come in and do interiors, or take customer's car to their place and for them to get the interior done. And it was always like, you know, a guy would be like, all right, man, I'll be at your place at 8:00 in the morning. Let's get an early start and let's get going. Right. So 8:00 comes around, then you're looking at your watch and like, holy smokes, it's like 3:00 and he's not even here yet.
Yep.
So I'm like, you call him and I'm like, so, hey man, like, what, you know, oh yeah, I got busy and I'm really sorry. And and I'm like, oh, I can't have that, man. It's not even my car. It's a customer's car. You know, he's paying. So you gotta do a little better at what you're doing, right? And so it just got to the point where it's just like, I can't keep waiting on these guys, you know, like, it's just, so it was during COVID actually. And my wife comes in to the shop and she says, she goes, is he done? Like, I'm like, yeah, supposedly. Like, you know, he goes, Mero, this is like, she's pointing out stuff, right? Like, this door panel is like, it's out of the corner. It's not even secured properly. And it's doing this and doing that. And I'm like, I know. I said, but I can't have him back here. He's just, you know, he's just kind of a pain, you know? And she goes, well, do you think I could do it? And I'm like, I think you can do it. Like, why don't you try, you know, like, just, and she came from a corporate world, you know, she was always in an office, you know, for numerous companies. And at that point she was getting a little sick and tired of making these guys big money, but not making anything really, you know? So, and then during COVID, like, nobody was working. Right.
Yep.
So she says, well, why don't I try to learn from somebody or something like that? And I'm like, well, sure. So she called around here, and nobody kind of wanted to, didn't have the time, to teach her and all that stuff. And so she actually learned from a guy in the States. And it was an online learning thing, a guy called Lucky Needle. And he basically went down the run through and what sewing machine you get and how to go about this, and it was all, some of it was live Skype, so she could ask questions and all that stuff, and that's how she learned. And then she started, because at that point her car, it had a bench seat, but it didn't have interior panels or didn't have a headliner or carpeting or nothing. So I said, well, there's your practice.
Yep.
Right? There's your practice. Go, So she built the headliner from scratch. And then she did the door panels. And I'm like, for your first car, that's pretty damn good, Well, yeah, it's pretty good, like she put spider webs all in the door panels. It's like, wow. And so we went to a couple of car shows with it, and she won best of show, like with that car. And then people were asking, like, who did your interior, And she goes, oh, I did. And she goes, oh, the one guy was like, oh, can you do my car? Like, can you do my panels? So do you have a card? And she goes, no, I don't have a card, So anyways, well, I'll write your name down and your number, And so anyways, we did that. And she did his car. And then it was through Instagram, I think. She was getting more clientele. And then a fella contacted me with regards to pinstriping and lettering his big rig transport truck. And he says, and he was from Pennsylvania. He lives here now. And he says, yeah, I'm looking for somebody to do my truck. Because the guys in the States are like just so backlogged, like they're just, I need somebody to do it. And I said, well, my wife does interiors, I said, but she's totally new at it. Like, like you talk to her. And like it was hard because she didn't even know how to charge these.
I was going to say it is when you start something new. It's like what you want to get paid for your time, but you want to get paid for your time, but you don't want to overcharge, but you also don't want to underpay.
You want to undercharge because it is. I've always seen interior guys do their stuff, but I was like, well, interior is not a big deal. It doesn't take that much work. Yeah, no, it does. And so she got in contact with him through me, and that was the first big rig she did. And then she took the extra time and she's meticulous anyway. If something ain't right, if a button is down like a millimeter, then she's like, no, I got to redo this panel. So so she took her time with that truck, but it went to the MATS, the big Mid America Truck Show, and it won best of show. It won all sorts of stuff, and then mainly what she's doing now is tractor trailers.
Awesome.
So she's kind of morphed out of the car world into the tractor trailer world.
And now you got to hire her to do your stuff. See?
And now I got to hire somebody else. No, she still does the odd stuff for us, but the majority of the stuff that we're doing right now, it's still hot rod stuff, but in Ontario, the muscle car scene is huge. We don't, and it kind of, whatever, a car is a car, but
yeah,
and I don't have a problem with muscle cars at all, but it's just not my love, I still appreciate the muscle cars, but it's to get a car in, if you're not doing a hot rod, you're not going to turn away a guy with a Dodge Charger or a Buick big block car or something like that, So yeah, we do some we do some muscle cars as well, but a lot of those, like interior wise in those cars, unless you want something custom, it's you can pretty much buy new panels and new seat covers and already done, and it's a lot cheaper, Yeah. But yeah.
Well, what's a show or event that you try to make every year?
Syracuse Hot Rod Nationals. Yeah. We love that show. The people are fantastic. It's so well organized, and it's one of those things where it's like it keeps drawing you back, and we've been going there for gotta be 7-8 years in a row, maybe more. And yeah, we love that show. That show is great. We used to go to the Viva Las Vegas Rockabilly Weekend show, and that was always a fun show. More so lifestyle and culture and stuff. And that's what kind of got me into the whole, kind of nostalgic scene.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, it was a lot better the earlier years.
Yeah.
Instead of the later years, because it kind of like once the shifter car club kind of stopped doing the car show there, it kind of lost its soul a little bit for the car show, but the diehards just go there for the for the music, for the culture, and that's what kind of actually, with regards to pinstriping, that's what kind of got me into pinstriping was watching Scratch at Viva Las Vegas stripe a car in the parking lot,
Yeah.
So that was always a good show, and we haven't gone for years now, but geez, what other good show is there? There's not a lot here. There's not a lot of good car shows here.
But y'all have the unique advantage of y'all have winter. So, like, we have car shows from January 1st to December 31st. We don't really have a time off, where y'all have winters. So you could put your car away and do stuff to them, and they come out way cooler.
Yeah, that's the good thing. It gives a little bit of a break, and especially through Christmas holidays or anything like that. Like, come Christmas holidays, that's great for me because I can do my own stuff,
Yeah.
And shut down the shop for everybody else. But do my own stuff, and that gets me kind of caught up on stuff that I really want to do.
Yep.
So and that's great, and it's kind of a hype for there's a big show here in Toronto, and it's called Motorama. And it's an indoor car show, and it's a pretty good show. It's gone through a lot of hands throughout the years, the promoting and the people that put it on. For a while, it was really, really good, and then it kind of dropped off a little bit. Attendance wise, they were like, "Oh, it's the same old crap. I don't want to go there." And then when COVID hit, that was the worst year. I was kind of sitting there looking around, like, I hear birds chirping, like there's nobody here.
Yeah.
And so, but the following year, it picked up again, and I built a truck. It was a '46 Ford pickup, customer's truck, and it was the first kind of high-end build that we did that made the front haul, because there's a bunch of hauls to that show, but all the really prestigious show vehicles, they usually put them in the front haul, so that was kind of cool that we got into the front haul and kind of showcased on what we can do, and that, man, when that truck left, a part of me left. It was like when I delivered that truck to the customer, it was like, oh man, like this is a truck I would have built for myself, Yeah. And it was a pretty cool project. So that kind of got us in the front door, and I'm humbled because it's like, this guy that kind of was building cars out of a one-car garage with Dad,
yeah.
and kind of building the stuff we're doing to make somebody else's dream a reality. We're humbled because of that.
Yes.
And but yeah, so that's a with regards to the winners here. That show draws a lot of people too, because everybody's like, they're in hiatus, right?
Yeah.
So they're not going to any car shows, but then this indoor car show comes in March, right? Yeah. And they're like, I got to go see a car. Or I got to go see a bunch of buddies that, are bringing their cars there, and they take the car covers off their cars and they load them on a trailer, or sometimes they drive them there, and if the weather's nice. And it's a car show in March, So, but I mean, there are a lot of kind of pop-up shows that cruise nights or whatever that happen around here. That it's you can pretty much go cruising every night in the summer. There's different car clubs that host cruise nights and all that stuff. I'm not a cruise night guy. I've gone, but I don't necessarily are eager to go on. Oh my God, it's Tuesday, I got to go to a cruise night, So it's like I rather just drive my car, I'd rather get in. My wife gets in her car, I follow her through. I mean, we have beautiful roads up here in the country because we're in the country. So on hot summer nights, it's great just to both of us go get an ice cream or yep. go to a pub or something like that, But to go to a cruise night, sit down and fold out my lawn chair and sit behind my car, that's not me, Yeah,
that's why we just hopefully announcing a new location on tomorrow's live, but that's why we left that one, because he was trying to make it something it wasn't. It was supposed to just be a group of car guys getting together, have lunch, hang out, bullshit about their cars, what shows are coming up, what the plans are. And it kind of turned into the fold your lawn chair out, take up, a parking spot. Yeah. And I'm like, oh man, like that's not what it was about, man. It's just about getting people together.
That's right. So. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and again, there's a lot of retired guys that's what they want to do,
Yeah.
So, and if that makes them happy, that's great. They can go and get out of the house and get away.
Yeah.
Get away from their wives that are not into cars.
And I don't care how you enjoy your car, just as long as you get out and enjoy it,
That's right.
There's people that just want to say they have that car. That's fine. If that's if that's how you enjoy the hobby, then do it. There's people that want to sit and bake in the sun for hours waiting on a $5 trophy. Fine, do it. That's not me.
That's my dad. You can't leave now. They're doing the raffles now. You can't leave now. Dad, come on.
So what's a show that you've never been to that you would like to go to?
Well, it's always been a dream to go to Pomona, California for the Grand National Roadster Show. And so that was always been a bucket list show for me. Another one would be, not so much a bucket list show, but the Lone Star Roundup. I'd like to get to that. Mm-hmm. I've never been. Friend of mine, he's an older guy, and he has a VW Bug, and I think it's a 56 or a 57 VW Bug, and he takes it to Bonneville every year. And he's always bugging me, like, you gotta come to Bonneville. You gotta come to Bonneville, So that's a bucket list thing too, to get on the salt and check that out, Oh geez, man. I think Pomona, California is the top one, And the cool thing is we're going with the T, so that's cool. It's one thing to go, get a chance to go to that show, but to go with a car, that's a little something cool. A little special. Yeah. And so we're making a little vacation out of it, and put the car in the car hauler and grab the dogs, and away we go.
So how's the weather? How's the weather up there? Like January 4th.
January 4th here, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Like,
I'm thinking our weather down here. I'm thinking our weather down here would probably have you beat. I'd like to personally invite you to our first annual at Big Daddy Don Garlett's. We're doing a show.
Oh my God, I'd love that.
January 4th.
I love that. January 4th. Wow.
I know it's a trip, man, but so it's all cars welcome.
Yeah, I love that.
All cars welcome. It's not a trophy hunter show. We're going to have a couple picks, couple car club picks. Oh, cool. My mom's giving an award, so you could win my mom's award.
That's awesome.
We're doing 50-50 raffle, and the 50-50 raffle benefits Ryland Strong Network, childhood cancer.
Oh, nice. Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing.
Shameless plug. Pre-registration's open on hotrodhangout.com.
There you go.
Yeah, man, we'd love to have you. I think Zach's going to try to make it down.
Cool. Yeah.
And if he does, I'm going to try to get him to stay a little bit longer and chop the A while he's here, but we'll see how that goes.
There you go. Yeah, do a live demonstration.
So, but
yeah, no, that's cool.
Would love to have you, man.
Yeah, definitely would love that. Yeah, I would love that. But I that's another thing I'd like to go. I've never gone to Garlett's museum. Kind of always wanted to take my dad, and check it out. And I'd love to check that out too.
If you do come down for the show, you get a discount for the museum.
There you go. That's awesome.
But so what would you like to tell us about? Oh God, dang it! What would you like to tell us about Calleja Kustoms? Hold on, let me get that right.
You got it, man.
So
you got it.
What would you like to tell us about Calleja Kustoms?
Well, what can I say about Calleja Kustoms? Well, I mean, you know what? A lot of the times we don't know what we're doing, but we do it, right? And it's one of those things where we strive to, because we realize that, there's not a lot of people that have endless amounts of money in their pocket. And we know that because we don't have that, and so it's we always strive to kind of work with everybody if they want to have a car built of their dreams, and they always want it, or more so if they're an older person and they've had a car in the past, and tragic events happen, or they've had to get rid of their cars and they keep kicking themselves in the ass because they've got rid of their cars. Some of them would like to get rid of their wives before they get rid of the cars, but they had to get rid of the car before they get rid of the wife. So, it's one of those things where it's like, we kind of work with everybody on kind of almost create a relationship first. And kind of, try to be friends with them before they want to go down this road. Right. So, and over the years we've made amazing friends, and, because of it. So yeah, it's just working with people's budgets, and working with what they want to do, with their car. And more so to the fact of trying to steer them in a way with regards to experience on the best way possible, to go about doing it, because, I don't know how many times I try to say to, like, if you want to do a beater, that's one thing. If you want to you want to get your feet wet into the hobby, you've never had an old car before, this is what you got to expect. Driving an old car is not like driving a brand new Escalade.
No.
So you got to know how to drive these things. They sometimes, and we try as hard as we can to make them stop like brand new cars, but at the end of the day, it's not. So having people that have a little bit of knowledge be in the background helps out a lot. And at the end of the scale, it's like, it helps out a lot in a way where they don't know how long stuff takes, right? So yes. It's kind of like, well, that took like 5 hours to put like a door handle on, and I'm like, yeah, because sometimes it doesn't go on the way it came on.
Well, it's the 30-second commercials on TV shows that say that you could put a motor in, and a commercial break.
That's right. So so we try to sit down with everybody, and we try to say, like, this is if you want to build a period correct car, and having a nice car or truck, you want to stick to a genre. You want to stick to an era. Mm-hmm. Unless you want these, I don't want to belittle anybody, or I don't want to insult anybody, but with regards to rat rods and that jazz, you can have a really, really well done rat rod, and to me, that's not really a rat rod. It's a hot rod that was built on a budget, right?
I'm laughing because that is that rat rod term comes up a lot on this podcast.
Yeah. So it's hard because we don't do rat rods, and it's one of those cars. I call them art cars. So, if you have a car that has a big, metal skull for an air cleaner on your car, and you have like, traffic signs on your four floors, and everything's held in with rivets and stuff, that's leaning more to a different world.
Yes.
So, we don't do that, but if, again, to each his own. If that's what you want, that's what you love, that's what you're going to do, more power to you, right? So I kind of make sure that, or we kind of make sure that we stick to everybody on an era kind of goal, So in a way of, like, say you're doing like a traditional custom, okay? So you're doing a traditional custom, you don't want to have like Honda Civic mirrors on it. Or you don't want to have like power reclining leather seats, or into that kind of realm, and it kind of differs, in my opinion, it differs between a nice car and a really, really nice car, Yes. So, like I've witnessed this before. It would be like, you go to a car show and you see this like really nice Merc from afar, like, this really nice chopped down Merc, bubble skirts on it, like all the right custom stuff. It's gorgeous. And then you walk up to it and it has digital gauges, or it has like an airbag dash from an Impala. And it's like, why did you do that? So it's kind of like, again, each to his own, but it's kind of what we strive to do, is kind of like, veer people into like, no, this is the way you should do it.
Right.
And it could be the right way, it could be the wrong way, but it's just like what we like to do. But with regards to the Calleja Customs, that's what we strive for every day, is to try to, work with everybody on, and getting them what they want at the end of the day, because it's not my car. it's their car,
Yes. But it's definitely easier to build something for somebody when it's sort of something that you would build for yourself.
Yes, it's totally easier. The gentleman with that 50 or that 46, that Ford pickup, mm-hmm. He bought that truck on from an estate sale. It was in a barn, and it was a like farm fresh truck. That's it's what it was. And he contacted me through a friend, and he just said, listen, like he goes, Merrill, I'm a muscle car guy. I have no clue what a custom entails. I have no clue. So we need to sit, my wife and I need to come down and sit down with you and talk it over. I'm like, yeah, no problem,
Yep.
So they came over and we talked about it. Super nice people. We're friends with them as well. They've been great friends over the years. And so they just basically said, like, we want to have this truck stand out from the rest, and you build it the way you would do if you had this truck. And I'm like, are you sure you want to go down that road? Because I see the truck and I already have visions in my head, And they're like, well, we want to hear it. I said, I'd like to do it like a Gene Winfield built truck, and 100% we got to do some modifications here, big time, So, so he's like, I'm all for it, dude, and he was one of the guys where it's like, whatever it is, man, you do it. He says, you let me know when you're going to start, and you let me know when I run out of money, I'll give you more, And he goes,
those are the best ones.
Oh yeah, fantastic. So I'm like, all right, let's do this. So the truck came. It was actually a very cool truck because it must have been hot rodded in the 70s or the late 60s. It had a small block Chevy in it. He had pulled it, but originally it had a small block Chevy in it with a tunnel ram in it, and it had a wide 9-inch Ford rear end in it, and it was those typical like 1970s tires stick out of the fenders, right? And it had a diamond. It had a diamond vinyl headliner in it that somebody just glued up there. And I think somebody back in the day, they right down to like taking the front rad shroud, like the top where the latch goes into. It was all chrome. It was all Greek, like it was all chrome back in the day. So that was kind of cool. And so anyway, so I started taking this truck apart, and I'm looking down near the front of the frame rails, like in the front where the frame horns are. And I see these two, they're thick welded plates on, and they got two holes in them on each side, and they're shaped like these, like bullets. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, did he plow a friggin' driveway with it, And so I'm putting two and two together, and I'm asking more questions, and I'm like, he goes, no, they used to tow it to the drag strip. And I'm like, oh, they're tow brackets. I'm like, that's cool, So anyway, but whatever, we pulled everything apart, like took the body off the frame. Frame was still in good shape, so we still used the original frame in it. I just basically boxed it all in, and then we went with a Fat Man front end, Mustang 2 front end in it.
Mm-hmm.
With lowering springs and lowering spindles, and then we did a static 4-link in the rear with coilovers, and he had a small block Chevy punched out, and it was like the guy that did it for him used to build race engines, and so it had a dart intake on it, all aluminum heads, bow tie dart heads. It had a 500 and something lip cam in it. Like, it was just a stupid cam for the street. And so he says, like, I want to put this motor in. Like, okay, cool. So anyway, months go by, and I'm doing the framework and getting the box all trued up and stuff, and the fenders were shot, so we hours on the English wheel, like just making patch panels and all that stuff, because you could get reproduction parts But a lot of the companies that were punching out parts for these 46 pickups, they're no longer around.
Yeah.
So it was getting hell to get a new set of running boards, because the running boards, they just welded a piece of checker plate on top of all the rot. And so like I think he had paid a guy in the States to get reproduction ribbed running boards. And so he's waiting like months, and I'm like, dude, like I need these running boards to start sizing stuff up, And he goes, I know, man. He goes, I haven't heard from him. I'll try calling him again. So anyways, he ends up calling him, and the guy retired and never told anybody. So he paid for these running boards, and the guy's gone rogue. Like he can't even get in contact with him. So I'm like, oh man, you got to be kidding me. He goes, no. He says, so the place where he ordered it through, he goes, they couldn't get in touch with me, so they just gave me my money back. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't help me any, because I got no running boards still. So anyway, so I'm like, okay, man, let me just, let me just take off the checker plate that's on there, and I'll build you like scratch built running boards, And he goes like, no, but how long is that going to take? And I'm like, it'll take a bit, So we were like, I bead rolled all the stuff back to stock, running boards and all that jazz, and got them fitted, and that was okay. And then a couple of weeks went by, and I'm like, man, this thing would look good chopped, It would look good really chopped. And so I blew it by him. I call him up. I'm like, Steve, I got an idea, man, but I don't know if you want to. And like, this guy is like 6'2", right? Like he's not, or 6'4". Like he's not a small guy. And so he's like, you want to chop it? And I'm like, yeah, I think we should chop it. And he's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I'll send you a shot of. We'll Google a guy that chopped one of these trucks. It looks cool, right? So he's like, all right, yeah, let's do it. I'm into it. Let's do it. So we took about 3.5 inches out of it, and it set it off. It just set it off, because no one really builds a really nice 46 Ford pickup.
Mm-mm.
Like they do 40s and they do 39s and 35s and 33, 34s, but nobody really does a 46, And so we did some mild other stuff, and I striped it all for them, and got it all painted and done, and they were like just over the moon, thrilled as hell. And then like I said, it went in the front hall of Motorama, and was well received. And then it got picked up by Canadian Hot Rod magazine, and they did a full feature on it. And it was a lot of fun. I'm telling you, man, when that truck left, I was like, oh my god, I hate to see it go. But at least he's not that far away from me, so I can always pop in and take a look at it again.
So what's one piece of advice that you would give somebody trying to get into the car culture or hobby, or, just generally in this world?
Yeah. I would say perseverance, you can get fed up of a project really fast, if and especially if you're new into it, it's one of those things where do your research as much as you can, outsource a bunch of parts, ask a lot of guys, go around the car shows, ask questions, because sometimes it's almost like that syndrome where your eyes are bigger than your stomach. So, it's like you buy a project for really cheap, right? Like we talked about getting projects for $400. And, but 99% of the time, if you're getting something that's really cheap, it's probably killed, So it's, sometimes they're like, yeah, I got this car for so cheap and I'm going to build a budget, build. And then yeah, you're getting the car for cheap, but the problem is now you got to spend so much more money into it to get it where it needs to be, and if you're doing it yourself, that's amazing because you can save a lot of money, and then just learning and kind of learn from the guys that I always say the proof is in the pudding. So learn from the guys that are actually like they have some good product out there that they've built, or ask questions of those guys. Learn from those guys. If you're learning kind of from somebody that has like popcorn welding and really crappy cuts and all that stuff, you're not learning good stuff. You're learning bad stuff, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. If you've been doing it the wrong way for so many years, you're not going to be building very much good, not a lot of good stuff, right? So, but yeah, do your research, and stay away from the TV shows because that's not reality TV, it's just stay away from that stuff. Kind of go off and talk to the real people that have done it and that are doing good stuff out there, That's everybody starts from the beginning, but if you take advice from the good guys, then you're on the right track,
Definitely. And also, if you, I want to add something, and it just came in yesterday. Actually, I was talking to a young man, and when you get in a project, sometimes you have to take a break from it. Because the Model A got sour for me for a little while, and I didn't even really want to do it anymore. And then I just kind of let it sit in timeout for a second, and with the body sitting over it and the wheels tucked, and I'm like walking by it every day. I'm like, you know what? It's time. Let's jump back in it now. Now I'm back excited about it.
Yeah. Like half of the time I'm in the shop, I'll be lying down on my side and it looks like I'm sleeping, and I'm just staring. I'm just kind of lying down there. Because you can get a better perspective if you're lying down on the floor next to the car, right? Because you can get a better idea. And if you lie down there for a second, kind of hold your head like that and just watch it and just look at it, then ideas will come and it'll kind of – I'm telling you, man, there's been – I don't know how many nights have been sleepless nights because, something that was supposed to go in so easy or has been in there, like, by putting doors back. Something is so simple as putting your door pins back in, and it's like you're taking those doors off, you've taken those pins out and doors off so many times, but then as soon as it comes back from paint, the doors don't fit. Mm-hmm. So it's like, that kind of can get under your skin a little bit, if you, like you said, if you can you work at it, if it's not going to go in that day, then don't get frustrated. Just put the door back down, leaning up against the wall, and then tomorrow's another day. And
so, also, if you're pushing the limits and you're doing something that no one's done, there might be a reason.
Yeah, because you're customizing. You're changing stuff. It's one of those things where it's like, well, there's 4 holes in that panel. Well, I'm just going to use 2 screws. Well, it ain't going to work. It's meant to be there. And the factory, did something right, or else they wouldn't have lasted so long.
Yes.
So you kind of have to, when you're customizing stuff, it's half of the time, at the end of the day, you do your best for stuff to fit, but sometimes at the end of the day, it just doesn't.
Well, you also have to remember, we're working on cars that are approaching 100 years old. And they've been bouncing around on the road for at least half of those years. So square, beat, some things that used to be square are now round.
Oh yeah. Especially trucks.
Yes.
Especially trucks. Like, they were bought to they were bought to haul stuff.
Yes.
They were abused. So door gaps are not right. And it's just,
well, a lot of times door gaps weren't right in 29.
Oh, no kidding. Absolutely.
They were throwing them in there to get them out the door. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right, babe. Before we get out of here, hit us with the dates.
Alrighty. Well, in November, we have the Turkey Rod Run, 28th through December 1st in Daytona International Speedway. So we will definitely be going to that. And then we have the updated dates for for Slam Fest, December 21st through the 22nd. That's going to be at the Florida State Fairgrounds in Tampa, Florida. So we're excited to go to that show as well, especially because Hurricane kind of wiped it out the first go around. And to start off the new year right, January 4th, the Hangout at Don Garlett's Museum of Drag Racing. All vehicles are welcome. Podcast sponsor and car club picks, as well as a hometown hot rodder pick. So all podcasts. There are going to be food and merch vendors, raffles. There's a 50-50 for the Ryland Strong Network. Pre-registration is only at hotrodhangout.com. And if you are pre-registered, you will receive a gift bag with goodies and merch inside.
Come hang out, guys. Yeah. And please pay attention to the Facebook for the event or for our cruising. Like I said, we are actively searching for a new place to go. But we'll find somewhere to go eat. All right. Before we run through our sponsors, is there anybody that you'd like to shout out?
Yeah, shout out to my wife, Deadly Custom Upholstery. What can I say? She's my wife and she's awesome.
There you go.
Does awesome work. Yeah. Who else? Jeez. There's so it'll probably be too long of a list.
Oh, you're good. Well, definitely, before we run through our sponsors, I do want to say that we need to have a follow-up episode with your better half.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys. Till next time, go check out BP Customs on Facebook.
And check out Throttle Attic using the code word HOTROD. You get save 15% off.
Go show Johnny Jalopy some love. Facebook, YouTube, JohnnyJalopy.com.
And Rat Rod's Woodfire Pizza. Check them out on Facebook, ratrodwoodfirepizza.com for their menu and to book an event.
And make sure you go show low-income clothing and low-income photos on Facebook and Instagram some love. And Kelly, thoughts and prayers with you, bud. Get to feeling better.
Oh, yes.
All right, man.
All right.
All right. Till next time, guys. Get out and drive your shit.
See?
Later.